The thing about the lies that Tania Head said, okay, when it involved the narrative she constructed after convincing everyone, is when the families themselves or the people she claimed to help save her came into play, which is the most heartbreaking thing. Now, this is an absolutely heartbreaking part of the text. This bit here. Because a part of Tanya's narrative was the fact that she was saved and pulled from the debris by a man wearing a red bandana, and who was identified quite early on as Wells Crovers. And Wells Crover, Alison, his mother, okay, Alison's son Wells, a 24-year-old equity trader, was working on the 104th floor of the South Tower when a plane flew into the building. He was a hero that day and become a legend in death. Wells was Alison and Crowell's only son. At first he knew very little about that day. Wells had gone to work that morning as usual. He called both his parents, said the towers had been stuck and he was okay on his way out the building. He had made it down to the ground level of the South Tower before it collapsed. His body was found 6 months later, along with the bodies of a group of New York firefighters. There was enough information to satisfy Jeff Crover, but Alison wanted to know more about the son's final moments. She wanted some sense of how Wells had died, why he had died. And then she came across a New York Times story, okay, about the man in the red bandana, knowing that it was Wells. The fact that in his last moments he helped 2 women, okay, right, who were Ling Young and Judy Wen. Now 4 years later, they learned about a third person her son had saved, and Alison wanted to meet her. Okay, so it is private family event. It was Tanya bought chocolates, a hamburger shake, and she brought Janice along for moral support because she was freaking out about this, because deep down inside her psyche she was like, oh my god, is my life about to unravel here? And the Crovers were so kind to her, and they sat down with her over dinner and told her about their son, about Wells, what a wonderful man he was, okay, and the fact that he would have gone on to great things, and that in his hometown he's an absolute hero. And then it says this, okay. Tanya listened quietly. The man who saved her life sounded a lot like the man she married, she said. Now I tell you my story. Then she tells the narrative of the fact that she was at 9/11 at the World Trade Center, to the family, claiming that their poor son Wells saved her, bringing in her, basically snaring her in her lair, if you will. And the fact is that Tanya's actions as well within the survivor group of the 9/11, her clutches, if you will, her influence, her gaslighting of them, for want of a better word, caused such a split within them. Okay, now Jerry Begues, who started the group in the first place, feeling the way he did over surviving. The fact is that Tanya's influence over the group was so strong it splintered from him. Okay, this bit here, this is, the chapters are very short here. This one is adequately just called betrayal. It was only that summer when Jerry Begues got the first inkling that things in the survivor network was not as they seemed. He and Tanya were manning the booth for the group at a New York street fair. Jerry enjoyed Tanya's company. Had been looking forward to that day. In the heat of the morning, they gathered bottles of water and greeted people and caught up as friends do. But as the day wore on and the crowd thinned, the conversation took a startling twist, and Tanya essentially claimed that Jerry wasn't doing enough for the survivors. He wasn't forceful enough in trying to save the survivor staircase, which is now a prominent part of the Memorial Museum, and I'm going to put a link to it right under. He wasn't speaking up more. He wasn't much of a co-chair. And the fact is that in the forum itself, he had essentially banned any anti-Islamic sentiment or blaming the Muslim communities themselves for it, and wanted to open a dialogue with the local music communities, which at the time people felt no, they were posting the anti-Islamic statements, and he put a stop to that. And essentially, that the group was losing their faith in him, and they wanted him gone. And Tanya herself wanted to take over. She wanted to be the head. She wanted to be the big cheese. Okay? This bit here. Was it the message or the messenger that hurt him the most? Jerry wasn't sure. Tanya basically said the people who he'd come to care for deeply were losing faith in him, no longer trusted in his leadership, and she said it with the indifference of a dissatisfied boss preparing to fight a negligent employee. He told him that afternoon feared he lost his best friends and he didn't know why. And the fact is that within the group, Tanya's grip on them was so strong, okay? Her influence was so powerful that further along when they're planting a tree ceremony, okay, Joe's at the back just feeling uncertain, and Tanya turns around and mocks him for it, okay? Joe stood away from the others, feeling like an outcast. When some of the others wondered why he wouldn't join them, Tanya responded by grimacing. "Oh, poor Jerry," she said mockingly. "Look at him back there sulking." She's taken what this poor man's gone through and twisted it around and basically pushed him out and then try to take control of it. This woman is so warped. And then when it comes to Wells Crover, okay, who sadly lost his life at a special ceremony for him in his hometown, where the two women he saved get up and give speeches about how Wells helped them on that fateful day. Okay, Tanya herself, surrounded by the actual survivors, okay, surrounded by the true people that Wells has saved. Well, she couldn't do it, the speech that she planned. She just passed it to Janice. She passed the buck, if you will, the therapist, and said, "You do it, I can't." Right. So, yeah, that's exactly what she does. She passes the buck when she can't do it, or when she's concerned that her narrative is gonna, people start questioning her narrative. I mean, all it's gonna take at this point again was someone to turn around again and say, "I don't remember you being there, and I was literally in the same place as you at the same time," and it all unraveled. But obviously, her influence was so strong, and no one wanted to believe the worst of her. No one could turn around again and say, "You weren't there." Okay, and then okay, her grip on Linda really kind of comes to the forefront here. Now, Tanya goes into a technique with her therapist called flooding. Now, flooding is when you record a terrible memory, something bad that happens to you, and you listen back to it over and over again to desensitize yourself to it as a way of getting over it. I don't know. I never tried it myself. I don't know if it's any good or not, but that's a technique she used. So she recorded her experience of being in the World Trade Center on September the 11th, and then called Linda to listen to it with her. Linda, who observed everything on the street. Linda, who had battled with alcoholism. Poor Linda, who at the time felt her place within the group. Did she have the right to be there or not? And Tanya says this to her, really kind of undermining her struggle. Okay? "Don't be such a chicken," Tanya said, mocking her. "You're scared, huh? Why should you be scared? I'm the one who went through hell. What have to do with listen to a tape with me?" Actually, Tanya was right. At times like this that Linda didn't even for a word call herself a survivor. She had been burned and nearly lost an arm the way Tanya had. Nor she lost a loved one in the attack. Who was she to refuse a friend who enjoyed so much and asked so little? Right. Besides, she said, she could never hear enough about what took place in the tower. It was a morbid curiosity. Her own therapist said was a common symptom of survivor's guilt. If she listened to the tape, she would hear plenty of what went on, perhaps more than she ever heard of. I've always felt privileged, especially to be the one Tanya picked to share such a crucial place of healing. How could she be so weak when Tanya was so strong? Linda felt ashamed. And then poor Linda had to sit to listen to this tape of Tanya talking about experience of 9/11, which really, really does affect Linda's mental health. The grip that Tanya has on Linda sounds like a form of PTSD. Right. And the fact is that I think deep down Tanya knows eventually her lies are going to start to unravel, and it affects her psyche in the most kind of unexplainable ways. Now, obviously, at this point, okay, she's managed to splinter the 9/11 group. Her lies have essentially brought a family of Wells Crovers into it, and for the 6th anniversary, okay, due to the fact that this is the point where all the survivors are, it's playing a lot on their minds, but no one is as deep immersed in their grief as Tania Head. This bit here. Tanya quickly immersed herself in the planning for the 6th anniversary, but her friends noticed something was different about her. She was irritable and ornery almost all the time, and seemed to be trying to distance herself from the others. As always, Linda was always on the receiving end of Tanya's moods, and always tolerated the hurt that came with Tanya's razor-sharp words. She worried that between regurgitating September the 11th July therapy sessions and now losing her brother, she claimed her brother passed away of cancer just before, Tanya was heading for a nervous breakdown. In early September, her worry turned to panic, and Tanya told Linda that Merrill Lynch, the organisation that she worked for, wanted to meet with her, meet with the family of the co-workers and the people who were in the tower. And then Tanya calls Linda and claims that at this Merrill Lynch meeting, okay, at the St. Regis Hotel, it was a mistake and had been horrible to her. And so Linda's showing a shine of gumption, which we haven't really seen up to this point, okay? While she approaches Tanya, who's outside this building, saying that they're being mean to me, they're screaming at me, the people from Merrill Lynch are having a go at me, okay? Tanya is freaking out. Linda takes some gumption, walks in there to demand, what is going on, what are you doing to my friend? Now, I like this, because this, no, I don't like this, but I like this for Linda, because this is a sign of Linda taking control back from the narcissist. She doesn't realise it yet. But this is the moment she starts to take back her power, she starts to question. She gets stronger. Okay, so Linda, kudos. Okay? Alright. Guiding her into a hotel lobby, she put her in a chair and marched to the front desk, demanding to know where a Merrill Lynch meeting was taking place. How was she going to give these people a piece of her mind? How dare they treat a friend like that? Didn't they understand what she'd been through? The desk clerk looked baffled. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Before you had time to think of every retort, Linda saw Tanya beckoning her. The poor woman looked desperate. Linda threw up her hands and said, it's going to be okay. Not going to hurt you now. Okay? Right. So, in front of Linda, obviously, Tanya has seen Linda do this, and she's like, oh, no, beckon back to me, come back to me before it all unravels. Yeah. Come back to me before it all unravels and you know the truth. There is no Merrill Lynch meeting. It's just me at the St. Regis crying in a chair. Because I've worked up, but calling you, because you're my supply, if you will. Right. And the fact is that 6 years on, so this is obviously 2007, is the fact is now within the 9/11 survivors community, Tanya is, let me just read this bit, okay? Right. Tanya was a World Trade Center superstar. It was never more evident that her annual gathering, where guests angled her moment with her and she basked in the attention. This year was different. The day leading up to the 6th anniversary was spur of emotions for Tanya. It was increasingly agitated and withdrawn, snapping at all of the people, sometimes not showing up when she was supposed to be. She didn't take phone calls or return emails, and when she would answer her door, it was obvious from the moment of the TV that she was home. She was phoning survivor friends 3 or 4 times a day, complaining that the New York Times reporter was stalking her for a story. As often as Tanya had made it clear she wasn't interested, especially with her brother's death and the anniversary looming. So Tanya made up this story about her brother died of cancer to kind of deflect attention. Okay, you can't talk to me now about this story because my brother's just died and I'm grieving. The length she went through to maintain a grip on them, to fabricating her, obviously, own place within, a place at 9/11, and her fabricating her own brother's death. Okay? Which was really, really starting to confuse people. And the fact is that now people are starting to wake up a little bit more to her because they know about they know about this anniversary kind of articles coming up. They know at the Times want to speak to her because this woman has been at the forefront of it for so long. The survivors community, meeting the politicians, giving speeches, going to events. That now the New York Times want to meet her, but now they're answering questions. They're Googling Dave. They're finding out more, and and it's all starting to unravel. And her attitude is just to take it out in the world around her because now Tanya herself is losing control. Right. Right. If there was ever a steadfast friend, it was Linda. Tanya's cruelty towards her just kept escalating, yet some managed to smile through the sarcasm and the mean jokes. Okay? Tanya criticised her endlessly, from her choice of clothing to the red colour of her lipstick to the way she wore her long platinum blonde hair. Like any other times, Linda shook it off. She never knew where she'd find Tanya, the sweet loving friend, or her evil twin. She learned to handle both. Okay? And some of the other survivors criticised her for being a doormat for Tanya, and some have fallen over her, but they didn't care what they was thought about. As long as Tanya needed her, she's going to be there. That's what friends did. Right? But then, obviously, the New York article keeps coming up, and all the other survivors kind of banding together and saying, just ignore it, we'll sort it out, wait till after the actual anniversary. Okay? And Dunlap, the actual reporter doing it, okay? And it's such simple questions, and the fact is that even the survivors themselves are now breaking free from Tanya and are questioning why isn't she answering these questions. What was Dave's full name? He asked. Was Dave her husband? Because there was some confusion, he said, because Tanya various times to different people referred to him as both a husband and a fiancé. How long had Dave worked in the World Trade Center? Where had she gone to school and what degree she had? Did she test school on a different name? Dunlap inquired whether Tanya still worked for Merrill Lynch and asked whether her title was Senior Vice President for the Strategic Alliances and noted it on the WTSCN profile. Here you go. Right, here you go, see? Breaking out and breaking free. So the fact is, okay, that Tanya knows this article is going to come out. She knows, okay, that she's been rumbled by the New York Times. So even though at this point the survivors are banded together, it's Janice who actually overhears this conversation at Tanya's lawyers. At that essentially says, it's okay, you embellished a few bits, a few little white lies, and that kind of thing. And then from that moment, it's Janice's eyes are opened, and she realizes the truth. And this is a bit hit after she's heard all this, after she's heard Tanya's lawyer say, it's okay what you did, it's fine what you did. For 4 years, Tanya had been telling her story and no one had questioned the validity of it until now. There were signs along the way, there were discrepancies that everyone, including herself, had been almost too willing to overlook. Why hadn't she ever stopped Tanya when she referred to Dave as a fiancé rather than a husband? Why had she asked to see the house after that Tanya had lived in with Dave? Why had she never insisted on seeing the band jacket that Tanya said that she was wearing the night of the attack, so day of the attack? Had she wanted so badly for Tanya's story to be true? And then it comes to Janice that even though other survivors, Vinegar, have been questioning exactly the same thing, she realises that Tania Head was never there at all. Right. And then from that moment, obviously, if it was emotion at the World Trade Center Survivors Network, or WTSCN, okay, they voted to remove her immediately from their panel, okay, and Tanya just vanished. This bit here. What she'd done that ill-fated day is hijack a defenseless people and shake their faith in the goodness of mankind. Yet the great irony was that she also taught by example that healing from such a terrible breach of trust that came with taking care of one another. And the survivors that went into damage control, and they kind of put out things that no longer associated with them, because this was global news. This hit the UK. I knew it is. There's that fantastic documentary that I mentioned before, and others that you can find online. This was a big deal about this woman's manipulations and lies, and her victims, if you will. This was a thing, and the fact is, okay, that her victims, the fact is that for all these years, okay, they're coming to terms with the fact they've been lied to. The fact is that her actions diverted the attention which they needed from therapists. The fact is that she walked in and demanded everyone's attention, but everyone was struggling. The sad fact that people who went through what she'd claimed to have gone through, and yet they felt in her presence, because she ticked more boxes, okay, she'd lost more than what they had, they weren't good enough to even be in her presence. That's heartbreaking. So, this bit here. Right. This bit here is from Janice, okay? And this was in, Good Morning America, okay? I've heard her story over and over, and I've been there anytime she needed someone to listen, even if it was 3 in the morning. She's stolen my time and my soul. All I know is for the last 4 years she's been lying to me, and I feel betrayed. That's it. Right. Yeah, they all went back to the press and said how betrayed they were. Yep. And just Tanya also felt betrayed. Okay? Because these survivors, they went through so much. And in a way for them, Tanya did so much for them. She helped organise these events. She helped bring them together. And it was all under this terrible deception. So, this bit here. The survivors mourned the woman who wasn't there. Their initial denial that Tanya couldn't possibly be a pretender eventually turned to sadness over losing their beloved friend and leader. The anger over her stunning betrayal and her final acceptance, and a resolve to move forward. She was someone who could heal their deepest wounds and also inflict them, but ultimately the attacks on 9/11 wasn't enough to destroy the survivors, and neither was she. And her real name, here it is, because at the end of this book review is an afterword. Alicia Tania Head was back in Barcelona when The Woman Who Wasn't There was first published in April 2012. So, is Alicia delusional? Does she really believe alternative reality? Some experts believe so. I would say she exhibits symptoms of a disorder similar to Munchausen syndrome, a serious mental disorder in which someone pretends to be sick to get attention. Her own trauma therapist, Sam Kidem, who was treating her for post 9/11 post-traumatic stress syndrome up until the time her ruse was exposed, Alicia had an insatiable need for attention. He believes she is perfectly cognizant of her deception, but like any addict, more is never enough, and she does what she must to feed the need. Alright. Most of the survivors tend to believe the latter, that she crafted the story for any gratification, with little no thought of the people she would be hurting. The magnitude of her lies is staggering, but most were based on someone else's truth. Has she been a student of 9/11 for the 18 months between the attack and the time she first appeared in Survivor's online forum? The survivors believe she was. Since every single detail of her life can be found in public records and articles of the attack, she literally cherry-picked other people's trauma. The sound of the plane hitting, Wales Crover in a red bandana, the dust, the struggling, watching people die, taking someone's wedding ring and passing it to the wife. Okay? She took other people's narratives, their survivor stories, and wove them into her own in a way to get her to the top of the survivors network. Because in their eyes, no one was as tragic or as sad, had gone through as much as what she had. That she occupied the top of the pyramid. My personal feelings about this, because this obviously is a book review, and one thing I love is the fact is that it's told from the perspective of her victims, and I will call the survivors her victims, because they were ensnared in 5 years of her lies. Now, she dominated their time, took up their lives. I see them as her victims. As a book, it is a companion story. It doesn't it doesn't go deep into the nature of mental illness. It just tells a linear story, if you will, of what the survivors have gone through. And when you read about their examples, what Jerry went through, what Linda went through, it is absolutely heartbreaking what they went through. And the fact is that they felt that they weren't given the attention because you survived, that's enough. It wasn't. They're still suffering up to this day. It's now 20 years. And I'm so sorry. I am so sorry that you never got the help at the beginning that you so desperately needed. And I'm sorry it took a woman's manipulations for you to get that. And I just feel sad. My feelings about Alicia Head is I just feel sad. I can't feel anything else. Outright hatred it's just wasting my time. I just feel sad for what she did. I just feel sad for her victims of the Survivors Network, who she controlled and manipulated and gaslighted, because they deserve better. And to everyone on that fateful day in New York, I'm so sorry. To all you survivors out there, I am so sorry. So after denying it up to the very end of the reveal that she was a fraud, Alicia, they sent him an email to the forum saying that she had ended her life. And then she was spotted in New York. So clearly she's still with us. She was, after the book was published, first of all, she was far from her job in Spain, so she's still out there. So my feelings about this is just sadness. I just feel so sad. Do I feel sad for Alicia? Well, what she did was not illegal, but she still did it. She still sat there and shaped other people's grief and trauma to concoct this fake reality for her and ensnared so many other people within it, and showed a complete disregard for people, the way she treated Linda, how she treated Jerry with her bid to get to the top. I just feel so sad for all the people on that fateful day who survived, because you survived, and in a way, post of it, as this book says, you were kind of pushed away. So I am very, very sorry what you went through on that fateful day. I really am. It was a terrible, terrible thing to happen, and it's been 20 years, but you're still living with her actions in a way, because even after she treated you so badly, you missed her. You missed her presence. You can help it. She becomes such an integral part of your life, the Survivors Network, and your grief, that for you to kind of just forget about her would be very, very difficult. And I guess in a way you missed her, as you said in the book. So this is a book I really, really do recommend. It doesn't, it doesn't go into deeper into mental health issues. It does, but what it does do is tell the story of the Survivors Network, how they were formed, how they were founded, and that's the takeaway from this. Okay, and that's basically it. So obviously today is the 25th of 9/11, and this is going to be playing a lot of people's minds today. So I'm very, very sorry for what happened that day. Okay, and to all the survivors, I'm so sorry for what you went through on that fateful day, and due to the actions of Alicia Head, who, I don't know where you are right now, but hey, you have to live at the end of the day with what you did. So it's basically it. So to everyone out there, take care, stay safe, and I'm signing off. Bye now.